So we're going to get into the Dawn debate in just a bit. All right, and now it's time for the Dawn debate, and I'll just reintroduce our guest this morning. I have Oscar Omoke, who is the candidate for ODM for Langata constituency. Good morning, and thank you for joining us. We also have Msari Siongo, who's independent, also for Langata. Good morning, and thank you for joining us once again. Gentlemen, welcome to the studio. And let's start with, first of all, just why you need to be given that huge responsibility for Langata. Let me start with you, sir.
Thank you, Mike. I'm glad to be here this morning. As you might be aware, I'm a former member of ODM who are in competition with Oscar, who's just come out of court. It has been a back and forth process for him. I'm glad there's finally a candidate to meet me. However, the people of Langata live in one of the most diverse constituencies in this country, and perhaps one of the most blessed. I might want to start by saying that we have an international airport in Langata. We have 5 public universities in Langata. Wilson Airport is doing over 300 million shillings in cargo freight across the region every single month. However, none of these public institutions offer any form of employment or business opportunity to the people of Langata. The role of a parliamentarian is not just legislation, but also representation. I think this representation in the basis of Langata, because we have about 72,000 unemployed youth, has to be focused on economic productivity and inclusivity for all. Langata is a very diverse constituency. You have Karen Ward, which holds the elite, the rich of the rich. I think everyone knows that. And then you have Mugumoine and Nairobi West and South Sea, which hold middle-class communities. But beyond that, you have greater areas like High-Rise, where there's serious cases of economic marginalization, where people are living on less than 50 shillings a day. And this has to be changed. And my leadership is here to proffer the solutions that will be able to change the lives for the people. We're not here as anybody's project. We're here as a project of the people of Langata. All
right, now you are going in as an independent candidate, although you are initially a member of ODM.
Indeed.
And one might feel like that is just because you possibly did not make it as a, nominated as an ODM member. Why independent, and how are you going to do it as an independent?
Not to want to dwell too much on the historical, but since you asked, first and foremost, the very fact that my good friend here, Oscar, and Alex Ouda, who I'm told this morning will be running to the appeal court to look for another injunction, and it's becoming a tiresome process. However, that is a clear indication of the shambolic nominations that occurred during the ODM. Oscar himself has been to court to stop Alex from serving his papers. I don't think he'd have been in court if he thought the nomination process was very fair or that Alex's certificate was legitimate. So having said that, I decided on my own volition, and as well with a lot of encouragement from thousands of supporters in Langata across the board, urging me to push forward with our agenda for development for the people. Because Langata cannot wait for another 5 years for good leadership. And the reality that you have today is that 5 more years for Langata will mean 5 more years of suffering for the people of the entire...
If they're not in good hands.
And that cannot wait. So tukasema tuende mbele. And that is my slogan and part of my independent emblem. This is for the people of Langata, not anybody else.
Okay. Oscar? Yes. Same question. Why do the people of Langata, and why should they elect you as their member of parliament?
Langata is one constituency that is very historical, particularly in this country. You'll know that Langata constituency was previously in the current Langata and the currently called this Kibra constituency. It was one. And if you look at Langata constituency, it is a constituency whereby it has a lot of resources. It is the one constituency that has a national airport in the city, a national park in the city. We have this airport here. We have so many government installations. We have the KWS is there. We have the Nyao Stadium is there. We have so many institutions within Langata. But the biggest concern is that Langata constituency, its residents, its voters, don't benefit from all those all these facilities. So why I'm coming in as a member of parliament is because, as we all know, that the role of the member of parliament is basically representation, oversight, and legislation. But when you look at all these parameters of this legislature, we are seeing that Langata has a very big gap that is not filled, because we are having representation is not well being done. We are seeing that the resources that are within Langata, the oversight role is not actually being done to the level of the expectation of the people of Langata. So we are coming in and we want to fill that gap to ensure that
How are you going to do that differently? Because it's one thing to get a promise, it's another thing altogether to implement. Let's get to the how to, because right now, between now, in the next 52 days or so before August 8th, we're going to have a myriad of promises from politicians like yourselves. And maybe to speak on behalf of the people, politicians have not got a very good reputation of keeping their word. But let me start with you, Oscar. How to? How are you going to do that?
The how to is very simple, Mike. One, if you want to represent the people, you must have actually understood what their problems are.
So what are their problems?
One of the biggest problems in Langata constituency is that we're having an increase in crime. And this increase in crime is by the majority young people in Langata. And we are not going to fault them on that. Is that because if they don't have employment, they have nothing to do, and yet they are seeing all these resources, they are seeing all these things that they can do being given to outsiders. I'll give you a case in point that if you go to Wilson Airport right now, Wilson Airport has a lot of contracts for young people, women and youth. But when you look at the people who are benefiting from there, they're not actually the people who stay there, those who vote there. They're people who come from outside and they're given contracts there. And that is where now the biggest problem is. So we want to form a system whereby the young people of Langata, the women of Langata, the voters of Langata actually are the ones who benefit, who participate in the development of Langata. And that is where now we come in. If you understand, and he has said, that Langata has the leafy Karen. We have the slums in Mugumoini. We have the middle class representation in Southlands, Otiende, and South Sea area. All these people, you must have some synergy to make you understand what is the person at the slum doing, and what does this person at the top want. So you must be someone who will be able to ensure that those who have are actually protected, and those who don't have are actually brought up to ensure that they benefit from all the resources within Langata.
Musari, do you think that's practical, that, for instance, if there are contracts at Wilson Airport, then the people who should benefit are people of Langata? I mean, there would be a question of qualification. There would be a question of the rest are also Kenyans. I mean, it doesn't mean that because I live in one area, I cannot work in another.
I do not want to give my brother a lending hand, but I want to thank him for agreeing with me that these are all resources within Langata, and majority of the things which he says are true, and I'm glad that I jogged his memory this morning. However, let me get into the nitty-gritty of how it's going to be done, because as Zio said, there's going to be a lot of promises this last 52 days, without really people getting to the details, crossing the T's and the I's.
Right.
And I want to do that right now as fast as possible. If you're going to talk about engaging the youth and women in Langata and the residents, they're 50-year-olds who would like to do some business in Langata and perhaps begin to nest to feather their nests for retirement, which is okay. And to do this, you have to have a policy called the disaggregation of procurement. That is to say, if you're going to put up a building block of 10 million shillings, then you know that by common construction law, Mike, and contracts, about 40% of that belongs to the contractor for profit and labor. But why wouldn't we want to give the youth and women of Langata the opportunity to supply sand and bricks and stones and cement? And this disaggregation of procurement has worked very well in other countries where I've been doing consultancy over the years with Oxfam and USAID, as well as the European Commission, where we get people engaged in mass projects. When it comes to representation in terms of the public institutions across the board, as well as private, this is not far-fetched. It is absolutely possible. It might need some legislation, and when we talk about legislation to this effect, we want to say that there has to be a local quota That doesn't mean that you take all the contracts. But let us at least have 40% of contracts given to the people of Langata. Now you have various institutions that will be able to clarify to you who the residents are. But to have public institutions, to have large blue chip companies running within Langata and not doing business with the people of Langata, this is completely unacceptable.
And that sounds good. It sounds like a very good policy on paper, but how will you get that done? Because at the end of the day, like I mentioned, we are all Kenyans. And you cannot disqualify or penalize somebody because they live, for instance, in Embakasi, yet they're qualified to work in that blue chip company in Langata or Karen.
You're right. And we're not talking about kicking out someone from Embakasi from doing business in Langata, not at all. I've talked about a quota, so that we have a particular quota of contracts within that area being given to the people of Langata. Not everything. That's not possible. Neither is it a nationalistic appeal. And I don't advocate for anything that creates segregation amongst people. Not at all. Having said that, I think I want to be very clear here that any government that does not do business with these people is a bad government, because the government is the largest spender. Now, any institution that is being hosted in a local area and does not do business with those people is seen as a predation. It's a predator institution. So the young men and women who are having economic challenges because of the vicious cycle of economic marginalization in this country continue to look at those institutions and the people who are there as potential victims instead of customers. We want to change this perception. We want them to be looked at as customers, and for them within the corporate institutions and the public institutions to look at the young men and women who are disenfranchised economically as suppliers. This has to change. And this is what my leadership is going to do for the people of Langata. We have it thought out from A to Z. We're not here as some form of political opportunistic infection in Langata. I was born in Olympic Kibera. I am glad to God that he managed to raise my parents from those slums all the way out to Otiende. I went to primary school on the very outset at Karen C Primary School, and from there we now hold a family estate in Karen. So I know the bitter side and I know the sweet side. Okay. I am born and bred in Langata, and I have the solutions for it.
All right, Oscar, still on the same issue, and I'm assuming that this particular idea that you seem to agree on to some degree is mainly to bring down the insecurity. But I'll have you know that one of the issues, of course, that we have in Karen and Langata is insecurity. There's a lot of crime that's happening in that area, but a recent survey done did prove that some of the thugs that are in that area are not necessarily from even Kibera. They're from as far as Juja, others from as far as Kayole. So that may not necessarily deal with the insecurity because these are intruders per se.
Mike, let me tell you one. As he has told you, Langata is one area whereby we have a lot of designed and arranged housing estates. We have the Residents Association. If you go to Upper Karen, we have this Karengata. If you go to Otiende, we have the Southlands Residents Association. South Sea has a Residents Association. If you go to Kuinda and all those areas, we have the Nyumba Kumi areas where they actually know their problems. We have had a meeting with the South Sea Residents Association, and they're very clear of what is actually the problem, how they want it to be done, and who are actually the people whom they think are bringing problems within South Sea. If you go to Karengata, that association, it's well designed in such a way that they actually know who lives and who stays where. Now, the issue of insecurity, we are saying that, I'm saying that if Langata is not secure, it's not just for us, but also for the whole nation, because this is a capital city, and you cannot say that insecurity should be placed in the hands of, say, the local leaders and all that. It's a national issue. But specifically, the young people of Langata are hardworking. But there's always been this perception that Kibera slum, there's a lot of insecurity that comes from there, which you've said it might not be true. So as a leadership, I want to fill the gap between the residents' associations, the national government, and to ensure that even the county government provide sufficient security within Langata.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let me come to you, Msari. And another issue that bedevils that area is the issue of water. I don't remember the last time there was flowing water, you know, like 3-4 days. And in this day and age, honestly, to be talking about a basic commodity like water is almost embarrassing. And I know it may not be in the docket of the Member of Parliament, that's county government, but you as Member of Parliament, one of your roles is representation. How would you represent your people in Langata in regards to that particular challenge?
Well, Mike, I have a very close linkage with the Orange Democratic Party, and contrary to popular belief, not everything is sorted out by shaking people's gates. And representation will be, indeed, a critical part of my leadership. Having said so, there has to be collaborative efforts between county government, national government, and the local leadership, which is embodied in the Parliamentary Member of Parliament for Langata. So we want to create cross-sectoral linkages, because whereas perhaps Governor Kidero might feel stretched, he's handling 17 constituencies with a myriad of wards, and perhaps the Water Ministry might be a bit sleepy, as it were, in sorting this out. The role of a parliamentarian like myself, and what I'll definitely do, is to create some collaboration in terms of both financial input, ideas, and technical assistance, all the way from the executive, where you talk about the Ministry of Water, when you're talking about the county government, and the CDF fund, so that we can create segmented water supply systems for different areas. Now, it might not be able to, it might not suffice to provide water throughout the period. But I think if we had standalone boreholes with some form of water sanitation system there, and we did this as a collaboration of finances between the CDF, the county government, and the national government, and if we had 3 or 4 in every ward, they'd be able to stand the gap during the hard times when there's no water in this country. And you're right, Mike, and I'll say this, that it is embarrassing that after 50 plus years, we're still talking about a shortage of water. Let me be very clear. The government, since Jomo Kenyatta, has been talking about water. Daniel Moi, talking about water. Mwai Kibaki, talking about water. Uhuru Kenyatta came in talking about water. He's leaving government, and he's still talking about water. We intend to fix that problem. We've been talking about it for 55 years. It's far too long.
All right. Oscar, the same challenge. How would you address the issue of water?
The challenge of water, and I must also integrate it with the challenge of housing, that we have the urban pressure that is piling up, that is competing with the resources of this community called water. But what we must understand in Langata is that we are having so many high-rise projects that are coming up. Now, that is a function of the national government, which we know that we actually need better housing. But we are not also planning to ensure that we have sufficient roads, and we have a sufficient water supply and sufficient sewerage. So my role as a Member of Parliament will be to ensure that our people need housing. I know we have the high-rise buildings that have come up. We have the National Housing Corporation that has come there. When we were campaigning for the nomination, I remember that people ran there with boreholes to drill water, purporting to be campaigning for 1 or 2 candidates. But we must have a policy that ensures that each and every square unit of a house, of these houses that we bring, we have sufficient water, and we have sufficient roads, and we have sufficient sewerage. Because I will not understand why, when it rains, South Sea floods. But it's one place that has no water at all for basic use. So we want to ensure that when we're looking at Langata as a whole, water is a problem, but it might be segregated, and he has rightly put it, that as a Member of Parliament, we must ensure that the national government plays its role, the county government plays its role. As a Member of Parliament, we play our role to ensure that all developments that are happening within Langata have sufficient infrastructure and all the commodities that are necessary for proper living.
All right, and let's now look at a national issue, and I'll start with you, Musari, and this is to do with the IEBC, which again has hit the headlines, and we only have 53 days to go. So, of course, it is a matter of concern to all Kenyans as to how this is going to play out. But your thoughts on the fact that we have another issue again that has been thrown at them?
Excellent. Let me start by perhaps putting some humor in our morning. And I want to thank Oscar for agreeing with me on everything that I say. Actually, I'm going to enlist you as my key campaigner. You should just support me from the get-go. But having said that, now that we're all laughing, the issue on the IEBC, Al Ghurair, and the president's negotiations with them are completely unacceptable. This country went through a very traumatic period in 2007. It would be foolhardy for anybody to think that an election will possibly be stolen in this country again. And having said that, once an institution or a person has been involved in any form of unwarranted soliciting and canvassing, this is clear in public procurement. You should immediately disqualify yourself or be disqualified. What disturbs me more, and obviously you know that I'm NASA leaning, is that we have a systematic approach within the IEBC today, where individuals who seem to be slowing down certain route projects which are being orchestrated by some mandarins in the high and powerful places keep being fired. The procurement officer in charge of the ballots, the election ballots, was fired. The ICT officer was fired. Why are they being fired? What are they blocking? What are they stopping? What are we trying to do to this country again? So it's completely unacceptable. The Right Honourable Raila Odinga is absolutely correct in raising this alarm. It would be the honourable thing for the IEBC to recognize that under basic procurement law, morals and ethics, this is completely unacceptable. Al Ghurair is not the only company that can provide the printing of ballot papers. They have not even started printing yet, which means that any other company that is awarded can start printing tomorrow. However, if this country is going to be torn apart by a tender that is being given through the back door to Al Ghurair, who already have been having conversations with one party within a serious competition like we have in Kenya today, then it must be stopped, because Kenya is more important than Al Ghurair and its interests. That is clear.
Okay, Oscar, your thoughts on the same, given that we only have 53 days to go before we have the election?
We keep wondering, is IEBC prepared for this election? Because right from the word go, you remember the mandate tear gas. One side of government, the ruling party, was saying that they are competent until people went to the streets, people were tear gassed, and eventually they said, now let's let them go so that we can get new people. But the question should be, must all things be done under pressure? Because when the commission was being disbanded, it was because of the pressure by Right Honourable Raila Odinga and the NASA Brigade. Now we are seeing them coming back again and saying that they cannot do the procurement, and they have already awarded the procurement, the tender, to this particular person that everybody is suspicious about. And when you look at the CEO of IEBC speaking, he is saying that we have less than 50 days and we cannot procure because the timelines, the procurement process has this time span, and we cannot do that. I'm glad that today they've called all the stakeholders for a meeting to iron out these issues. But the question that all Kenyans are asking is that, must they be told what to do? Can they do the right thing without being pushed by any other, all these parties to do the right thing? So I'm still waiting to confirm if IEBC is actually prepared for this election.
Okay, so maybe as we finish in closing comments, what would you say as the way forward? Because the tightrope that we're walking right now is the timing. The 8th of August is cast in stone. That cannot be changed. The elections, unless, you know, by something which I'm not sure what it would be, but it's not changeable. But looking at IEBC, every time they seem to be getting on track, they're hit with another thing. If we were to quote maybe the Deputy President, he said that, look, the printing of ballot papers can be done by anyone. It's not, they don't come marked, they don't come, you know, indicated. So really, when we weigh the weight of what is at hand and what is being requested, What's your way forward?
First and foremost, this issue must be taken very seriously. The Deputy President is trying to make light of a matter which is very heavy. Once an election is questionable, then the country becomes very tense.
But what makes it questionable because of printing ballot papers? And I'm not trying to simplify it. I just want to understand. And for the sake of Kenyans, because if these are ballot papers, at the end of the day, it is the electorate that is going to fill in those papers.
Okay, Mike.
So does it matter whether there are 5 million, 10 million,
obviously,
20 million?
you have not yet been into the cheek of politics. And,
I'm representing the electorate, and I would like to understand.
Let me just elaborate on this. One, if we're going to be playing a football match between you and I can't have been having coffee with the referee last night. That's not possible. So if you're going to be talking about ballots in this country, and ballots anywhere in the world, I think it's Stalin who said that it doesn't matter how the people vote, it's the people who count the ballots.
Person who counts
now, this is how elections are stolen. It's not just about ballots coming here and the ones that you've been given in the polling station being empty. It's if there's another extra batch being given out somewhere. And that kind of integrity cannot be allowed to be questionable. This country lost far too much blood in 2007. And if this is the kind of thing that is going to bring tension, then you must all have the humility. The president must have the humility and say, look, I met with these people. It might have been on a couple of other issues, but given that they're now tendering for something which is so critical to the security of this country, I would also advise that they recuse themselves. However, the IEBC, you say, keep running into lots of hurdles. I don't think anyone is throwing hurdles in their way. They keep running into the wall, and they have the full sight to see. They have historical evidence all the way from the Kiviti Commission until the blunders of the Isaac Hassan Commission, which had them pushed out. So why would we be unable to learn from these things? And I think this is a clear indicator of the moral decadence that you have in this country, where people can't call right, right, and wrong, wrong. Okay. And this is definitely wrong.
All right, Oscar, your closing comments and the way forward in regards to IEBC and the fact that we only have 53 days to go.
IEBC has a responsibility, Mike, to deliver a free, fair, and credible election. And I think that is its cardinal mandate. We must ensure, and IEBC must be very clear to Kenyans, that if other players are having doubts on their processes, then they must come out clean. Because until NASA came out and told the public that the president was having coffee with the suppliers, that's when IEBC said, oh, now let's talk. Suppose no one whistleblows. What could have happened? You've just mentioned that a ballot will be marked by any other person. We've had issues about even recruitment of the commissioners. We had issues, and everybody wanted to ensure that those commissioners that are recruited are actually impartial. Now, the other time we were having the issue about the presidential tallying point, where we are saying that, as you rightly put it, why should they have a problem? Why should they appeal a decision by the High Court that says that if the presidential elections are counted at the constituency level, then that be it? Why should they appeal if they're fair and credible? We are seeing something that is still not being understood, because, as you said, if a ballot is marked NASA at the constituency level, why should it not just be announced there? Why should they appeal and ensure that it's actually at the National Tallying Center, where that marked ballot at the constituency center counts? So
all right.
We are saying that for this matter about the ballot printing tender, NASA has said that they must give us full disclosure why they are insisting on them and why they cannot change, and why, if they must do it, how are they going to do it?
All right, gentlemen, we'll have to wind up there because of time. Oscar Omoke, who is the candidate for Langata on an ODM ticket, and also Musari Siongo, who is an independent for the same in Langata. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this morning on the Dawn Debate. And that's where we wind up the Dawn Debate. But do stay with us right here on Morning Express, where we